Good morning, everyone. My name is Trista Bridges, and welcome to the session, A Date with Data. We're going to have three fantastic speakers with us today to talk about big data and how it's becoming increasingly important in the content development, distribution, and just generally making decisions about which content we see process. So what we're going to do is we're going to get started with each of the speakers introducing themselves and introducing their businesses to you. We'll start with Julian McCrea from Portal Entertainment in the UK.
Hi everyone, good morning. My name's Julian. I'm going to tell you a little bit about storytelling and going to show you something that actually hasn't been shown outside of the UK yet. So this is both quite exciting and slightly daunting. Very simply put, what Portal Entertainment do, I'm the founder, is we make thriller and horror-based content for tablets that react to your face. So I'll repeat that. We make thriller content for tablets that reacts to your face. The business is split into two parts. 20% revenue of the business is through making content that reacts to your face. And 80% of the revenue of the business, which is what I'm going to talk to you about today, is around letting other entertainment IP owners to use the platform to optimize and tell content in new ways. In the UK, last year, we've already brought out our first thriller as a company called The Craftsman. It's the world's first thriller for the iPad. From the minute you open the iPad, the story's told in real time over a 5-day period, and you're the main character. We did very well in the UK in terms of that, and it's allowed us to build some relationships on top of what we're doing. I'm not actually going to talk about The Craftsman. It's very data-driven. We change the product every month. I'm going to talk about actually looking at data from a storyteller's point of view. And what I mean by that is I've gone to a lot of panels over the past 2 days, and I think what I want to show you is that data and how we use data is actually about telling better stories and telling better entertainment, and how you could do that as a producer or writer. To start with, let's look at 3 things that if you've ever written anything. So first of all, in the audience, who is writers or producers here? Who write stuff? Hands up. 1 person, 2 people. Great, okay, so some of this stuff is going to be new to a lot of you, but I'll take you through it. So there's 3 things we look at as a business from a narrative point of view, which is something called reversals, something called revelations, and something called responses. And I'll just talk you through those. Now, a reversal from a narrative point of view sees a great dramatic shift in a way that the audience perceive a character. Probably the greatest example of this from a narrative point of view is the scene where Darth Vader at the end of Empire Strikes Back goes, "Luke, I am your father." It completely changes the perceptions of how you perceive Darth Vader up to that point, but also escalates the underlying dramatic tension between the 2 characters. The next thing we look at as a business is what we call revelations from a narrative structure point of view. And what that means is the audience are discovering a new piece of information that will then highlight a particular character's plight, but also might find out something that they didn't know before that. And a really good example of this is the moment at the end of 7, which is the head in the box moment. If you're a good writer and you can write good reversals and revelations, what you care about next is audience response. So this is a kid watching Star Wars. No way! And that is what we're all yearning for as storytellers. We're yearning for that moment when that child creates that type of change in emotional state. Okay, guys, we can stop that now. But what I'm trying to show you there is that change in emotional state from a point of neutrality to a point of complete surprise and shock and awe is what we yearn for as storytellers. And getting that idea that you can do things that are in the moment, let's call it that, allows you to tell better stories. And so what I'm going to show you today is a piece of technology that allows us to do just that. It's called Immersion Go, and what it allows you to do is measure the audience's facial expressions using the camera in the iPad around smile, disgust, arousal, confusion in real time. And it can be sent back to the producer in real time to tell better stories. So at this point, we're going to switch to my demo so that I can show you this. So in this example, what I'm going to show you is, imagine you're Jerry Bruckheimer, okay? Might not happen, but imagine you are. And what you do is you've done a first edit of the film Enemy of the State. Has everyone seen Enemy of the State? The film, hands up? Most people, great. Okay, so we're going to join it at the start of Act 2. And for the most of it, Will Smith has been alone by himself for most of it. And at this point, Gene Hackman is introduced. It's a really important revelation and reversal point in the story. And we want to test the audience's emotional response to that, to see whether we're hitting our story beat. So we go in and we type in Gene Hackman, and Enemy of the State's already been uploaded to Immersion Go. And you can see down here, we've broken down Enemy of the State into its selected scenes. Now, what I want to do is I want to select the bit where Gene Hackman comes in. So I select those particular scenes. And then what I can do now is, as Jerry Bruckheimer is, I can send that out to my demographic audience to then see whether they get the right emotional response, just like that kid did. So now I send it out, and obviously the iPad goes everywhere. So what we want to do is we want to pick up my face. And so we've picked up my face there. Then we start pressing record. And now what we're doing is we're taking a 3D model of my face, and we're mapping 5 different facial muscles on my face corresponding to 5 different types of emotional response: smile, valence, disgust, confusion, and valence. Now, if I look away like this, it stops because that data is meaningless. But if I look back, it starts up again. So just so you know, I'm not making it up. If I look away, it stops. And if I look back, it starts up again. Now, after you've seen all this data, you then, as the producer, can get that data back in real time of the audience's responses in their face. And what you'll see on the left-hand side is the probability of that particular facial expression, and then the seconds going along below it. So at this point, what you can see is that the scene was 1 minute 46, and there are particular line graphs associated with particular types of expression. Obviously, I was talking all the way through this. So as you can see, the peaks in terms of my facial muscles changed quite dramatically. But what you can do with this is, when you're looking at those particular graphs, is you can go back into your particular piece of audiovisual content, and you can then put the playhead to the particular points where your revelation or reversal has happened. And you can see then if you're getting that change in emotional state that you need as storytellers. Okay, guys? So with that in mind, and I'm running over, what's the opportunity for producers? For people who just make pure play TV and film, it's to help optimize and really understand the reversal and revelation points of your stories. For people like me who are doing slightly more bonkers stuff, we care about actually adapting the stories in real time based upon these facial expressions. Not everyone's there yet, but that's where we're going as a business. And we can announce today, in terms of in the UK, we are partnered with the biggest thriller writer in the UK, partnered with the biggest horror studio in the UK, and also partnered with Oscar-winning producers in terms of what we're doing. And we, as a roadmap, as a business, are going to continue to tell stories like this, where we're using that underlying platform around facial expressions to tell new types of thriller and new types of horror that were never done before. In summation, what I'm telling you today is that I believe that data can attack the way that we tell stories and the cost of content. It can attack it by helping storytellers who don't have the money of the big studios to measure and understand the emotional states of their audience to tell better TV and better content. If you can do that, your audience are going to come back, and it reduces the amount of money you have to do to attract them. Thanks very much, guys.
Great. It's okay. Great. Thanks, Julian. Next up, we have Odile Perraudin-Juillard from IBM, who's going to talk to us a little bit about what IBM is working on in this area.
So hello. So my name, thank you for pronouncing correctly my name. I understand it's a challenge. So I'm part of the front office transformation division, which is looking a little bit forward on 4 major initiatives that IBM has launched, which is around CAMs, so what we call cloud analytics, mobile and social. And today we're really focusing on analytics. I just wanted to give you a little bit of some figures on analytics. There would be by 2015 1 trillion of connected devices. Could be sensors, could be mobile, could be anything. And as well, which is really interesting, is that 80% of the data which are generated by these potentially 1 trillion devices is unstructured. So unstructured means it's audio, it's video, it's everything that usually you cannot data mine, you cannot search. And so the other thing is in the media industry, we see some dramatic changes in the environment. We see the rapid adoption of connected devices and especially social media. You may be just like me, the first thing you do in the morning is opening your mobile to look at your mails or social media. You usually look at your mobile 150 times a day, so we are totally addicted to these little devices. And as well, approximately, well, let's say a vast majority of the people who are watching TV usually also do something else on their mobile tablet or any devices. So it means that the platform and the content we are creating for media should be multi-devices. The other thing is the place and time for consumer engagement has shifted. We are commuting, and I was in London recently, and you go to the subway, and it's really dramatic, the number of people who are looking at their mobile instead of reading newspapers. Several years ago, it was really reading newspapers, and now it's totally shifted to watching their mobile, not talking about Asia, right? The other thing is the customer expectations for new services moved up. We as consumers expect more and every time, everywhere, anyhow. And so the information, the last thing is the data will really mean a lot. The conclusion is that really data means a lot for the industry. And so here I want to give some examples on applications of use of data in the media industry. For example, we can understand the audience sentiment, so we had a good example. We can have as well an in-depth and 360-degree audience profiling. We can predict the audience behavior, so not only looking at the reaction, we can also understand and predict what will be the reaction. We can also have a multi-channel content personalization and improve the news discovery. We will have an example a bit later. And so this was really on the front office, which means really how we interact as media with the audience, but also on the operations, which is not so sexy, but it can generate higher revenue, like, for example, optimizing the advertising scheduling or optimizing where you would put your media content to be closer to your audience. So with all things, we can either increase the revenue, better understand our customer, and reduce our costs. The last thing on big data I wanted to highlight for IBM is that we are working, so you may have heard about an initiative called Watson. No. I suspect you're familiar with a game called Jeopardy? Yeah? Does it sound familiar? Yeah? Okay, I see some heads nodding. Well, IBM has created a system which is called Watson, who is able to understand the question. So we feed Watson. Watson is able to understand natural language, including bad words, including slang, and is able to predict what is the optimal answer. And is dealing with both structured and unstructured data. And by what we did in the US, we try and compete against the best Jeopardy winners, and Watson surprisingly won. And so this is really what we are working on. So far we did some analytics, so to understand the data, understand both structured and unstructured data, to analyze it, to predict. And now the new era of big data for IBM is about cognitive computing, which means now we are really moving ahead from all the models, and the system is able to understand what we're saying and to predict and anticipate what we're looking for.
Okay, next up we have Mahesh Kumar from Magine in Sweden.
Hi, good morning. I'm very impressed that all of you showed up, despite the party last night. So my name is Mahesh. I'm very happy to be here. I'm a TV geek like you. I live in sunny Stockholm. I'm super happy to be here. This is a day in May in Sweden. And I'm part of building Magine TV. And I just realized that this is the first conference I've been to where there was a TV-style commercial before the conference started. So there was a shameless plug there. There's a little shameless plug here for 10 seconds. So what we do at Magine is we work with broadcasters to offer linear TV to end consumers live, recorded, and time-shifted on any device, which means you don't have to worry about missing a program on TV, or you don't have to worry about being in front of your TV to watch something live. We do this largely because we work with the TV industry, and that's always been our fundamental positioning, where we want to take an industry that's working so well all the way back in the value chain to the studios, to the broadcasters, and just change one thing, which is distribution, and amplify the end user experience. Coming to the topic on big data, I came across this, which I thought was pretty accurate. Big data is almost like teenage sex. Everybody thinks everybody's doing it, but nobody has a clue of how they're doing it. And it's not true just in the TV world, I think. It's true in any industry we are in. And when we started Magine, our tech teams almost felt like they were a big data company that happened to be doing television. And for us, our positioning has been very clear, and it's a great time to be in the media industry. It's a great time to be an end consumer. There's a plethora of content out there, long tail, mid-tail content. Even mainstream content is becoming better and better. It's great to be an advertiser on TV because the models are changing, and it's great to be a broadcaster or a production studio on TV, largely because of data. And I'm going to give you 3 reasons that we look at Magine on why we think this makes sense. The first one, sort of taking a leaf out of Netflix, if you may, is to look at programming and how we can create programming. And I think Julian showed you something that was fantastic when it comes to taking feedback from how people react to your programming and putting it back all the way to the production studios or to your content. And when you look at sort of how data is measured today in the TV industry, it's very statistical, whether it's MMS in Sweden or AGF in Germany. What we want to do is to play with the existing structure. We want to amplify it and make it better, which means we want to add more calculus to our data. So it's very granular and it's very exact. So it's very easy to see with Magine that this is a Michael, and he's using Magine on different devices. He's commuting from work right now, and he's watching a Disney channel on his iPhone. And these are the kind of content that he likes. So what does this mean when it comes to sort of getting all this data to a broadcaster? And I think since we share that with the broadcaster, it goes back into how good the content can be again, how good the content cycle can be again. The second bit that we think is interesting is niches are becoming the new mainstream. And when you combine different heaps of data that you get when it comes to the contextualization of this data, together with infinite shelf space that you have on services like us, where you can create a new channel that is tailor-made based on somebody who just likes thrillers. And it's just not tampering with your linear TV schedule, but creating a whole parallel structure of broadcast that is tailor-made to somebody that likes these kind of content. We think that's super exciting, and we think that's super interesting for a broadcaster or a production studio. And the third bit, which I really like as a quote, is easy as TV and smart as the internet. When you add the sophistication of internet to the ease of use of television, I think it's a marriage made in heaven. And this could be advertisers, this could be retargeting, it could be taking the internet-based advertising models and applying it on television. It could be engagement. There's a very fragmented social TV ecosystem today. And our positioning at Magine is if somebody uses Magine to watch TV, we know what they're watching. So it's very easy to amplify that again with second screen or with behind the scenes content or with polls or votes or ratings, if it's a quiz show and so on. So we can play with the format and play with second screen layers on top of an existing viewing behavior. So those are the three big trends that we see that is fueled by data in linear television. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Mahesh. Okay. Before we open it up to the audience for questions, I'd like to just have a short discussion about some of the things that you all mentioned and raised. I'm curious to understand what kind of reaction you're getting working with broadcasters and studios, content creators, to infusing so much data within the decision-making process. Obviously, data has always been a big part of the media industry, but I'm interested to understand what's the value that they see from it? What are some of their questions and concerns about it? And perhaps Mahesh, and et cetera, we can go through your thoughts on that.
Do you hear me? Yeah. So our positioning has always been to work with the broadcasters. And when it comes to data, it's obviously a sensitive topic for different reasons. And what we do when we are signing deals with broadcasters is we try to convince them and show them the opportunity of what is left on the table if we don't follow this value stream. And since we are a trusted partner and we work with them, I think we are slowly moving the industry with us into this new form of thinking, where when you start getting granular data, how does it go back into your way of working? So I think it's slowly shifting, but we're not there yet. I think we're just starting.
Odile?
Yeah, hello. I just wanted to share some example of things we're doing with some of our customers. For example, we worked with a broadcast company in the US, and we looked at the trailers which were broadcasted during the Super Bowl. And by looking at listening to the social media during the trailer broadcast during Super Bowl, we were able to anticipate what was the reaction and how popular the trailer was and the movie would be. And we were able to understand whether we should the company, right, not IBM, was able to reallocate the marketing campaigns to maybe another media to have a movie being more popular. So this is one of the examples. Another example of how we can use data is we worked with X Factor in Benelux, and we were able, by listening to social media as well, to anticipate that one of the candidates was very popular. And this guy was supposed to be moved out very quickly in the program. But by listening to the sentiment on the social media, given it was really popular, then the broadcaster changed the program and kind of eases the system so that it can stay a little bit longer and have a higher audience. So these are the kind of things we're doing for broadcast company.
We don't work with broadcasters, so I wouldn't know. So, I would. Well, in terms of, I think it still comes back to the quality of the stories that are being told with the data. I think fundamentally we can have location, personas, and all this, but can we tell a better story? And I think you've got to understand, like, audiences at home just want good stories, and they're already getting them in TV at the moment. If this data can tell a better True Detective, then yeah, awesome.
I think social media, which you mentioned, is sort of a low-hanging fruit almost, because the attention has shifted to social media. Everybody's talking about social media. It's become mainstream. And that's a low-hanging fruit in terms of looking at sentiments of how certain shows are doing. So it's almost a complementary to TRP and to ratings, especially Twitter. I think, but the real holy grail of TV data is combining what Julian does, what IBM wants to do, and what we are aiming to do, really. Because then it comes back to how can we change the story that suits different niches, powered by data. And you can take it all the way back to how are we packaging channels? Can we package it based on knowing who you are? Why should I buy a pack that has all the channels when I'm only going to watch thrillers? So it becomes all the way from, we call it the funnel, where from the start of the funnel till the end of the funnel, how can we affect data all the way?
And Julian, we talked a little bit before about how Immersion Go, about how you're helping in terms of saving costs, not only just about telling more better stories, but in terms of value for the for your customers.
Yeah, so the really boring producer thing to it is something called cost takeout. So everyone knows the level of burn rate it costs when you're in production. I think what Immersion Go, and definitely in the UK, is allowing people to do is get the feedback from the audience a lot sooner. And what that allows you to do is spend less money, also have a better understanding of whether your audience are going to want it in the end. And so you're going to see a massive key change probably in the next 6 to 12 months in terms of how we can bring that up further in the value chain to be honest, save you money and reduce a slight level of risk.
Yeah, and another example to add here is that we're working with a broadcast company, so it's not really cost saving, it's more increase of revenue, but in the end it helps the P&L, right? So we're working on a pilot to optimize the advertisement scheduling, and both in terms of efficiency to the audience, but as well in looking at the different local rules. I mean, I don't know for other countries, but in France, it's pretty tight on the number of minutes you can have advertising, so it's getting pretty complex. And so in order to map the local requirements and as well the audience, we are really working on the pilot with this broadcast company, and apparently results are pretty good. So.
Yeah, I'm also curious to know if there's any differences, and particularly this is directed towards Magine and Portal Entertainment, in terms of the responses you're getting from just a data perspective from viewers between different types of platforms. So are you seeing different responses on mobile versus television versus, what are the differences you're seeing?
I think there was a myth that we went into when we started Magine was with the mobile, it's going to be mostly short-form content, but we realized that's not true. It purely depends on the quality of content. We see that we have expanded the prime time viewing because we make it available across different devices. So prime time is not limited to 7 to 10 or 8 to 10 anymore. We see great engagement in the mornings, especially when you're traveling and commuting in the subway. Great kids content between 4 and 7 on the iPad. And we've sort of done a lot of regression analysis on looking at different content by genre, by kids or adult or science, sci-fi, and looking at different devices. And the trends are pretty clear, and it's pretty intuitive almost, that kids love their iPad and they love watching TV on their iPad. And when you give them all the content they like to watch, they just keep watching. And it's great being a parent when your kid is watching TV
all the time. Yeah, that's wonderful.
So there's probably two ways to answer that. The first way is if you're watching something in your tablet, it's the equivalent of a 44-inch TV because of your level of field of view. So it's kind of like watching TV in a weird way because of how far away it is. So in terms of that, by device, it doesn't really matter so much. What is interesting for thrillers is when people like to be thrilled. So I call it vampire media. So people love doing this stuff after like 10 o'clock at night, like 1 o'clock in the morning. If you start to look at the crazy times that people want to be thrilled, then it starts getting quite interesting. So probably those two things, no difference by device, but people like a particular genre at particular times. So.
Yeah, we worked with a telecom provider in the US, and thanks to the analysis of the suspected triangulation, we discussed it earlier, we were able to, for the provider, right, to understand where the people were, so whether they were home. So we didn't know whether they were kids or not, right? But we knew they were home, or at least people were home, whether they were at work or whether they were commuting. And by also looking at where they were, we were able to understand whether they were taking public transportations or whether they were commuting by car. And by knowing they were commuting by public transportation, then the telecom provider was able to sell that information back to broadcaster in order for them to push some customized content depending on the length of the commuting time. So.
Okay, great, thanks.
Like
I actually
Kevin.
we have a couple minutes left, so I wanted to open it up to questions, if there's any questions in the audience. I don't know if anyone out there has any questions.
Hello, my name is Fiona. I'm from China. I'd like to ask a question as the data is great, but is it by any chance that this kind of technology could intrude consumers' privacy? If so, how do you solve this problem?
I think that's probably...
Yeah.
All right. I think it's a really good question. I think it's how we've positioned this data before. I think the problem at the moment is you see the camera and you don't know who's watching is the problem at the moment. We're in a Space Odyssey 2001 reference for anyone. And I think what we need to do is not give the audience the idea that they don't know who's watching, but give the audience all their data. So meaning keep it completely transparent. And so that means I'm not giving it to someone, I'm sharing it, I can see it myself to deliver better entertainment. So I think it's a positioning change that we need to do as storytellers and media creators to allow our audiences to get better entertainment. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Just a comment here. So we worked with some French providers, and to answer your question, in France there are very strong data privacy protection, and so in order to do some customized content pushed to the audience, we had to anonymize the data, so we were not able to know who exactly Mr. XYZ was watching a program, but we knew that this person was part of that segment. So it's like, it's not too intrusive. And on the other side, what a broadcast company did is, in order for the content not to be felt as being too intrusive, they were putting some blurring around it. So they knew, for example, you liked that program, so instead of sending you only that program, they merged it with some other programs which were not exactly the same, so pretending they were not knowing you. So yeah.
Ash?
So we follow through. I think it's a combination, actually, our positioning. I mean, one is we always have the user opting in, so you're conscious of your choice. And two is, we believe that if the experience of you watching TV or discovering content or getting more recommendations makes your experience better and you've opted in, we think that data makes sense. But we'll never sell that data out. We'll never, and if we work with the industry, we work on an anonymous basis. So we're very clear and follow the exact privacy laws per country.
Great, thanks. That's all the time we have today. But actually, afterwards, we're going to have a Meet the Speaker session just outside the door here. So hopefully, if you have more questions for our speakers, we'll see you there. Thanks again.